Hey, I'm Nicole. Welcome back to my channel, where today I'm going to be tackling a little alteration on this t-shirt that I bought on Vinted recently. I absolutely love this t-shirt. I love the color, I love the design, I love the oversized fit, but it is a little bit too long in the length and a little bit too long in the sleeve for me. So we are just going to be doing a very quick shortening. I'm going to show you how you can shorten a t-shirt like this without needing an overlocker or a cover stitch machine. Before we get this to the cutting table, let's put it on so you can see what it looks like now, and then we will see what it looks like afterwards. Here is how the t-shirt currently fits on me. Now, I do love a boxy fit. I do love an oversized fit, so that is not really the issue. The issue is that it is just a little bit too long. When I try and tuck it in, for example, in the front, there's just so much bulk going on inside the trouser. So I want to crop the t-shirt so that it just leans into the boxy fit of it, but just makes it a bit more manageable when I want to wear it and tuck it in. We need to take a few little measurements and then we can get it to the cutting table and start the alteration. The first thing I'm going to measure is how deep this hem allowance currently is. I don't have to stick to it, but we might as well. At the moment, that hem allowance is just shy of 2.5 centimeters. So if I bear that in mind when I am looking to work out how much to cut the t-shirt by, I think we go as high up as we can towards the wiggly lines, but accommodating for the twin rows of stitching. I think that would be perfect actually if we went for that sort of length. I would also like to shorten the sleeves because at the moment they just feel a little bit too long. I think my ideal length for these would be if I just roll this sleeve up twice, and I'll do that on one side so you can see the difference in how it looks. That is obviously with the sleeve shortened, and this side is the sleeve lengthened. If I just hoik this up a little bit so you can see what the final proportion would look like. It just makes more sense proportionally to have the sleeve a little bit shorter, the length a little bit shorter. The t-shirt still looks nice and boxy, but it doesn't look out of sync. So let's now get the t-shirt to the cutting table and let's get into the alteration. Now, the first thing we need to do here is cut the t-shirt down to size. Let's start with the bottom and then we will use the same technique to do the sleeves. I've worked out that I want to have the double row of stitching, the twin stitching, sitting just below that wiggly green line. I think to have that any higher up is going to just disturb the print, and I just don't think that is going to be a good idea. So what we'll effectively have to do, bearing in mind our hem allowance is just under 2.5 centimeters, is we will need to add 2.5 centimeters to the bottom of the wiggle, and then we'll have to add another 2.5 centimeters below that. So when that folds back, that will become our hem. 2.5 plus 2.5 makes 5. So we need to cut 5 centimeters from the bottom of that wiggle. I am just going to do that with my rotary cutter and my quilting ruler. We're going to make a cut straight across 5 centimeters down from this wiggly line. Actually, I'm going to turn the t-shirt the other way because it'll just be easier for me with the cutting to do it that way. I've got my quilting ruler here on the 5 centimeter mark, which I'm aligning just under that green wiggle. It probably helps for me to sense check as well and make sure that I am keeping an even distance away from the hem. So that distance there is, say, 9.25 centimeters. Like here we've got 9, so we are a little bit skew if we need to come up a little bit here. So I think we just make the first cut there. And then let's move the quilting ruler along. Let's go ahead and finish cutting all the way across. And now we can take that offcut away. I should have paid a little bit of attention to where the care label was because I have now accidentally cut it in that process, but it's okay. I can just stitch the other bit of it along somewhere else. We'll have to remove this one anyway because when we turn that hem under, we are going to have to move it out of the way. So anyway, we'll deal with that a bit later on. Let's now repeat that process for the sleeve. Let's just check that the hem allowance on the sleeve is the same as the bottom, roughly just under 2.5 centimeters, which it is, because we want to shorten it by about 2 hem widths. That is effectively shortening the sleeve by a total of 5 centimeters. So here we are going to cut 2.5 centimeters off, which is effectively 1 hem's worth, because if we cut 2.5 centimeters off, when that gets turned back and becomes the hem, then we will get to our finished 5 centimeters. So we can just go in with our scissors and just cut all along that hemline. Actually, it's probably the easiest thing to do. Let's just turn the t-shirt inside out for this. It'll just make it easier for us to see exactly where we are cutting. I'm just going to make a cut up there to the bottom of the hemline. I'm just going to, with my scissors, go around and just follow the top of that hem and cut all the way around. Okay, so that's one sleeve done. Let's go ahead and repeat that on the other sleeve. What we are going to do next is take this to the iron and we are going to just press the hem allowance under. But before we do that, I just want to remove the care label here so we can move it elsewhere on the t-shirt. I do like to keep the care labels in my garments when I'm doing alterations, because if I ever want to sell the garment on, obviously the next person can see the care instructions, but it also helps to see the fabric composition as well. Now this care label is actually attached with the overlocking, so I don't really want to undo the overlocking. Often you will see that the care label is separately stitched on with a sewing machine, and in that case you can just unpick the stitching holding the label and you don't compromise the overlocking. But that is not the case here, so I'm just going to have to very carefully cut this off as close to the overlocking as I can, making sure not to cut the actual t-shirt. And we will then reattach these a bit further up on the seam here in the garment. But for now, let's just take this to the iron and let's go ahead and press the hem allowances up. I'm just going to turn up the hem by 2.5 centimeters. And then I'm just going to press that in place. I'm going to do that all the way around the bottom of the t-shirt and also on the sleeves. I've got the hem allowance at the bottom and the sleeves pressed up now. So let's go ahead and take this to the sewing machine and we're going to set up for our twin needle sewing. I'm just going to skip forward here, but if you would like to see the whole process of threading up a sewing machine for twin needle sewing, have a look at the separate tutorial that I've saved for this on my channel. If you wanted to replicate the finish of the original cover stitch a bit more exactly, what you could do is just overlock the raw edges here of the jersey and then do this twin needle sewing, which is what I would do if I was particular a pair of joggers or something like that, for example. But on a t-shirt, I tend to skip that step and I just go straight into the twin needle sewing because that edge is not going to fray. It's not that big a deal really, but it's up to you how you would like to do that. Now, the only thing about this twin needle sewing is that we're going to be sewing a little bit blind. We are going to be sewing actually with the right side up, so we're not going to see where this raw edge is. Initially, I like to just put it with the raw edge up, just so I can put the presser foot down and work out exactly where I need to align this edge here with the stitch plate. If I put the needle down a little bit, what I want to do ideally is enclose that raw edge right in between these two needles. And I can see here that that lines up my folded edge here with the last line of my stitch plate. So knowing that, I'm now going to turn the t-shirt inside out and then we will sew the hem. I'm just going to start here near the side seam and now I am just going to start sewing. As I go along, I'm just going to make sure that the hem allowance is turning back, that it's not curling and getting all distorted. And let's just start sewing. I'm just going really slowly so I can take my time. We've got the bottom hem finished. Let's now move on to the sleeves. I will make a little admission, which is that I have now changed to my walking foot. That's just because it helps to feed the jersey through a little bit easier than using the normal presser foot. I have also changed the colour of the thread to a lighter pink. I did actually unpick the first set of stitching I did on this to change the thread colour and to install the walking foot, and also because I think I had just gone into the green area a little bit. You can see the puncture marks there still, and I wasn't really happy with that, so I started over on that and that's what it is looking like now. So let's go ahead and do the two sleeves and then we will come back in for the final try on. When I'm coming back round to where the stitching first started, I don't tend to backstitch with twin stitching. You can, but I tend to just go forward and just cover over the first bit of stitching a little bit. At the end of all that sewing, what we have is this. From the right side, we have our twin needle sewing, and then from the wrong side, we have this very, very shallow zigzag. Again, if you wanted a bit more of a professional looking finish, you could just overlock that raw edge before doing the twin needle sewing, but I was actually just okay with this. The last thing I'm going to do now is just restitch my care labels in. Obviously I'd accidentally cut that one in half and you can see it's just fraying a little bit there. Just going to take a lighter and just gently burn those little edges off, and that will stop that from fraying. And then what I will do is maybe put these two together, one on top of the other. I'm just going to take it to the machine and I will just sew it into the seam allowance just like that. And here we go for the post-alteration try-on. I think it's got the perfect boxy shape now. I like the fact that the sleeves are a bit shorter. It's a lot more manageable. I love the length. I feel like I could still wear it out like this, but I could also do a little tuck on the front, which I do like to do with a lot of my t-shirts and tops in the summer, and then just have it sort of hanging loose at the back. So all in all, pretty successful alteration. It took just over an hour, including filming time. So I reckon if I did this alteration without needing to stop and film, it probably would have taken me somewhere between 35 and 45 minutes. The beauty about this kind of alteration as well is that you can just do it on your standard sewing machine. You don't need any other specialist sewing machines or equipment like overlockers or cover stitch machines. Well, that's it. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Please remember to like and save so that you can come back to it the next time you need to do a t-shirt alteration like this. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.